Alright, here we are, take 2 of Shadow Empire. So I'm going to do a walkthrough, tutorial-esque bit where I try to explain the do's and don'ts in Shadow Empire and try to get you started in the game. We're going in on the hardest difficulty. I'm going to show you what that means. Well, we could change the settings to make it harder. We're not going to make it too hard for ourselves. Planet selection, desert world, cold desert, planet with water that didn't develop life, planet with water that did develop life, lava world, planet with monsters, ton of moons. We're gonna go with a monster world. Okay. We're doing Nemesis, which means that one of the advanced AI starts has a big advantage and they're extra strong. We're going with Robinson Crusoe mode, which means that there normally wouldn't be any advanced AI starts. However, with Nemesis, there's one. That way we always know who the big bad AI is and we don't end up making any funky judgment calls that will come back to bite us later on. We're doing severe violence, which means all of the factions are more aggressive and dangerous, which means that even minor factions can threaten us early on, and if we're surrounded by lots of minor factions, we will end up in a great deal of trouble. Okay, extreme difficulty, otherwise normal settings. If you're playing this for the first time, I would consider disabling corporations and crime syndicates. We aren't going to do that, but those two things can be confusing and it could create some extra tension your first time through. You could reduce complexity and remove them. I wouldn't remove cults and sects though, because they are almost exclusively beneficial to you. Find map size. Alright, we probably want over 10% mountains. Some people will argue in favor of having no mountains, because mountains, you can't build roads over them without spending an enormous industrial investment, and honestly, that's not such an issue, because you shouldn't be able to build roads easily over mountains anyways. I believe it's something like 20 or 30, if you're building a road between here and here, it's something like 30 industrial points, but here to here is something like 300, or maybe 600. It ends up being quite large, and that's fine. It's the mountains, you don't need to build roads over them. That's an option if you have a lot of industry, but they make the game more interesting because they create these nice natural barriers and choke points, and they make it easier for you because you can defend in them, giving you an advantage, and you can hold choke points. If it's just plains, it's a bit simpler. And I kind of like the more interesting map that's a result of having mountains and water. The mountains generate something like soft choke points that you can get around, and the water creates hard choke points because there's no way to travel over water. Okay. Yeah, we got life on our planet. 2-meter carnivores, that's fine, all that's good. You can get teal or blue colored plants in life. I like the green. Green looks nice. We'll take it. Okay, we're gonna go for under 1 billion people, because the more people you have, the more ruins you have. The more ruins you have, the more artifacts you have. I guess we'll accept this. If you're playing on the aggressive AI, don't play with too many zones. If you end up going in with like 50 zones, you will find yourself in a great deal of trouble, because it means you will have more neighbors, and each of the neighbors will want to declare war on you, and then you'll end up fighting 5 enemies instead of 1 or 2. So it'll make it much more difficult if the zones get too high. I'd rather the population be a little bit lower, but I think we'll take this. I also think the game gets a little bit easy if you have too many ruins, but I haven't experimented too much with it, because you get artifacts from the ruins and Galactic Republic tech, and it's very strong. There are no hunters. There are usually never any hunters. Hunters are cool. No raiders is probably good. So maybe there will be less aggressive AI factions around us. Okay, you may notice the symbols change. I believe what's happening is that it is creating AI factions, assigning them symbols, and then you get the leftover symbols. So if there are more AI factions, you will have access to fewer symbols. Important thing to note, with unit color, this unit color is the most important thing you're selecting on the screen, followed by the symbol. The symbol shows up on your HQ units. The unit color is going to be the color of your tokens, and if you choose something, I think it will tend to desaturate or lighten the colors a bit. I'm not entirely sure on that. The best color you can choose is black. It gives you clean, non-intrusive looking unit tokens. The second best color you can pick is white. I'm partial to the red. I think the red looks good, but I'll go with white because I don't think many people choose white. And then we'll make red our primary color, which shouldn't matter. I don't know where the primary color appears in game. It might be on our structures, maybe? We'll see. And I like this symbol. I also like this symbol because if you do a black, one of your colors is black, then it blends, which is kind of cool. So we'll go with that symbol. Alright, so we are going to get a choice of one option in each of the three categories, which will be our starting dominant trait. Enforcement is all about logistics and deploying units. It's real good. You get much more, you double your supply lines. Government is about bureaucracy, which incorporates research and administration, as well as public industry, so government's very, very strong. Commerce is about feeding money into your private sectors, which is very, very strong as well, and it will raise quality of life and generate a lot of credit income for you. I would say enforcement and commerce are the easier ones to raise. I'm not sure which one is easier between the two. Government is extremely difficult to raise, but it is probably the strongest tree you can go down. So we're going to go with government. Okay, so heart, mind, and fist. Heart is all about the morale of your troops and the loyalty of your people and your leaders. You basically double your unit's morale by going all the way up heart. You double your loyalty, and everyone loves you. It's pretty strong. It's relatively easy to boost heart. The same is true with mind. Fist is interesting because Fist is not as easy to boost as heart and mind, it seems. However, you can boost Fist by declaring war, so you have an extra means of boosting Fist outside of the normal events. So, mind is tech focused primarily. I'm not sure entirely what it does outside of tech. I know it gives you a unit that, an attachment to a unit that increases your entrenchment. We're gonna go for Fist because Fist is just like, your units fight better. You have better combat ability. It's pretty solid. Also, it gives you some extra militia units early on. And it increases your casualty allowance, because if you have too many casualties, it will upset your people. But that's probably the weakest part of Fist, because depending on how you're fighting. Okay, democracy, meritocracy, and autocracy. Democracy I think democracy might be the easiest trait in the entire game to raise. However, you raise democracy by giving in to people's demands. If people petition you and they're like, hey, pay me money because I want it, then you pay the money because they want it, and then your democracy goes up. It is the worst way to raise a trait. It's so painful. It's so awful. What does democracy even do? I think it raises quality of life? Yeah, I think democracy raises quality of life. Meritocracy you raise by, I would say primarily passing skill checks that are harder than you can actually manage, or by accepting skill checks that are harder than you can manage, which is kind of funny. You end up being like, oh, this is a difficulty 150 skill check. Your skill is 10. Would you like to roll it? It's like, can I avoid critically failing? Maybe if I'm lucky? But meritocracy, kind of like democracy, you can grind it up pretty well, and the way you grind it up is through unrest events. but it's a little painful to raise it, but it's got some pretty strong modifiers because it gives you extra food, it gives you extra credits, it increases your leader's capabilities, and it improves your administrative and operational command roles. So meritocracy is pretty strong. Autocracy is very strange because the way you raise autocracy is by oppressing people. If you send in the troops to put down the protesters, you get autocracy, which is really easy to get. Except the issue is that you're killing your people to gain autocracy. You kill your people if you succeed. I think that's how it works. So it's a little awkward. Also, autocracy is a very strange tree because it provides no passive bonuses. It's the only tree that gives you no passive modifiers. So we're gonna avoid autocracy. It is easier to get autocracy up with Fist than it is to get these other two up with Fist, I think. Autocracy tends to be the option that you take because it's convenient rather than because you actually want autocracy. So we're going with meritocracy. We like the roll bonuses. We are Iron Keep. Our units are going to be on white tokens, which will be pretty cool, and I'm going to call it here, and I will be back next video to start the round out and talk about what a good starting situation is.